Liza Lawrence with episode 35. It's not luck, it's a miracle. Welcome to Wonders and Miracles podcast, where we celebrate miraculous moments in everyday lives. I'm your host, Liza Lawrence, a wife, mother, teacher, and miracle lover. If you're new to this podcast, this is what we do here. Each week on Miracle Monday, we celebrate awe-inspiring true stories from regular people like you and me. People who have experienced something surprising and wonderful that could be considered the work of a divine source. My desire is to help us recognize God's hand and His love in our lives, because the more miracles we notice, the more miracles happen. Thanks for listening to the show. Now let's celebrate wonders and miracles together. John Henry Newman, in his hymn written in 1833, Lead Kindly Light, says, "Lead kindly light amid the encircling gloom. Lead thou me on. The night is dark and I am far from home. Lead thou me on. Keep thou my feet. I do not ask to see the distant scene. One step enough for me." This is a powerful hymn, and it reminds me of this story, Lead Kindly Light. Today's episode, Lindsey shares her journey of being led to the exact right place in the United States with the exact right doctor who could help her son that was going blind from a rare genetic disease. I'm so happy for their miracle journey and can't wait to share that with you. But first, a shout out to the review of the week. This is from Courtney McKay, 84. They say, "Love this podcast, so inspiring, my favorite way to spend my Wednesday." So Courtney, I'm glad you're listening. Thanks so much. Remember, if you'd like to help support the podcast and spread the word, jump onto iTunes and write a review and let other people know that this is a worthwhile podcast. So now let's just jump right into Lindsey's story. Okay, well, I'm here today with Lindsey. And she's from Pennsylvania, and she's going to share a miracle story that started about 2.5 years ago with her son and a genetic disorder. So, Lindsey, thank you so much for being willing to share your story on the show. And let's hear what happened. Let's hear the story.
Okay. So it all started about 2.5 years ago. My oldest son started going cross-eyed, and going cross-eyed is not something you just start or stop. So I knew something was wrong with his vision. And we went to his pediatrician, and he recommended a pediatric ophthalmologist, which was about an hour away. We were able to get in within a week. We went down with the expectation of being told that he was cross-eyed and would need maybe surgery at the worst. So we were there. We have 2 other small children, and so all of us were there in the doctor's room, and we're going through things. And my mother-in-law, who is not religious, texted us, which I know she was inspired to do in the middle of the appointment, and said, "By the way, you have an uncle and a cousin," this is to my husband, "who has Best's disease." So my husband read this text out loud, and I'm a nurse, and I'd never even heard of it. And the doctor kind of laughed, and he said, "Oh, well, I doubt it's Best's disease. It's really, really rare. I saw it once in medical school back east, but I've never seen it. You know, it's really rare." And so he's looking in the back of my son's eyes, and he kind of pauses, and he's like, oh my goodness, I think he has Best's disease. We were kind of taken back because we had no idea what this was. And he said, "Hold on. I need to go get a colleague so he can come and look in his eyes and give us a confirmation, because I've never seen it." So he went and got a colleague, and he looked in his eyes, and he said, "Yeah, he does have it." So the doctor sat down, and he said, "This is all we know. He's going to go blind. We don't know how fast. We don't know what the disease really does to his eyes. I don't know a lot about this disease. It's really rare. They don't do a lot of studies on it. Look it up, see what you can find. We'll get you in at Primary Children's," which is in the West. It's a big area primary children's hospital. So we were overwhelmed. We just cried and cried and cried. And we walked outside, and just things you point out all the time. My husband said, "Look, guys, there's a jet." And we both just start crying, because that's not things that you think your child is going to lose, or battles that you think you're going to have to fight. So we went home, and we are very fortunate to be surrounded by a lot of family. And so we were able to call a lot of uncles and my brother and my dad, and they came over and they gave my little boy a blessing. It's where they lay their hands on their heads and they use the power of God to help bless lives. And they gave him a sweet little blessing and just said that we would be okay. So life marched on. And we tried to find out more about this disease, and all we could find was that it was something wrong at a genetic level that caused growth on the back of the macula. The very back layer of your eye is called the macula. Well, it's called the retina, and then the very center part is called your macula. And that's where most of your primary vision happens, all of your central vision. So like if you held your fist to your eyeball and whatever your fist is covering, that's what your macula sees.
Oh.
So he had growths on both of his macula.
Wow.
And they look like egg yolks, and that's like all we could find.
Oh.
We couldn't find any information.
And was your son telling you he couldn't see things, or just his eyes were crossing? So the first indication was his
just
eyes
crossing. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And as we looked back, we could see he's never had any stranger danger. And it's probably in reality because he had to be close to you to see who you were.
Wow.
And then he would always mix up. All the men in my family are big, like over 6 feet tall. Most of my brother-in-laws are like 250-pound men, like big men. And he would always confuse who their names were. And we always thought he was just teasing. And then we're like, you probably really can't tell who you are until he's right next to you.
Yes.
Because he couldn't see well enough. And he's losing his central vision. And so we would notice also that he doesn't really want to look you straight in the eye. He kind of looks like he's looking around the room. So that's because he sees more clearly peripheral and out of the side of his eye. And so that's how he gets a better picture of what's going on. So looking back, we could see that, I mean, he was really advanced. He was like the youngest case our specialist at Salt Lake had ever seen. So we went to the Moran Eye Center, which part of the Children's Hospital at Primary Children's. Moran is like one of the top 10 eye centers in the United States. We felt like they're going to know, they're going to have answers for us. And they did all the testing. And the doctor, he was really honest. And he just said, I know you came here for answers, but I don't have any.
Oh.
We think he's going to go blind. We don't know much about this disease. Be prepared. So kindergarten started that year. We got involved with our local group that helps the deaf and blind. And we started teaching McLean Braille, and we started teaching him cane skills and orientation and movement. And he had specialists that would come before or after school and work with him from the state. That's what they do, is they teach blind children how to function in the world. And we just figured this was our life, and we would take it step by step. So kind of fast forward to last spring, my husband wanted to find a new job. We were very unhappy with the company that he worked for, and he was ready to move on. And so he started applying everywhere. But we'd lived back east, and we'd said, if we can, we'd really like to stay with West Coast. Really, we'd like to stay in northern Utah area where we were because we have family. But whatever. We want a new job. So he applied for a job in Smithfield, Utah. And with this company, you don't do face-to-face interviews until your very final interview. It's all online, and it's a really big company. It's worldwide. So you wear a tie and dress up, and you sit in front of a computer and you answer their questions. And then if they want to do a final interview for you, they call you. So a few weeks later, he got a phone call from Pennsylvania, and we were like, what? And it was the general manager out here. And he's like, we would really like you to come interview out in Pennsylvania. We think that you're a good match. We think that you do really well here. And Matt was like, Pennsylvania? I didn't even apply for a job in Pennsylvania. Like, what? And so we just thought about it. We prayed about it. It just felt really right, which kind of took us off guard because we weren't expecting to go back to the East Coast. And so we're like, well, it doesn't hurt. They'll fly you out. They'll put you up in a hotel. Like, it doesn't hurt to interview. He comes out, he interviews. And it's great. It puts us in a position we want to be in, a company that he can grow in. And we're like, this is awesome, So he decided to move to Pennsylvania. So I told my son's physician that we were coming out here. And he said, you need to get in touch with the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia It is the best hospital for children in the world. Looking it up, we live about 2.5 hours from Philadelphia. We're really close. So I called in April just to see if we could get on a waiting list or something. So I called the pediatric ophthalmology place, and the answering service says, for all genetic macular degenerative diseases, press 1. All other people hold. I was like, that's
Wow.
weird. Like, that's what we are. Press 1. And it took me to this woman, and she answered the phone, and she said, so I work for Dr. Bart Leroy. He is a world-renowned physician from Belgium who specializes in genetic diseases, specifically involving the macular areas of the eye. So we were like, holy cow. She said, I have to approve your case because he basically handpicks his patients. So I'll put you on a waiting list, and then once he approves you, we'll see how fast we can get you in, probably in 6 months after he says that he'll accept you. So we're like, okay, whatever. We got involved with moving, kind of put that on back burners. As far as we knew, we thought there was nothing anyone could do anyway. So we moved out here in July of last year, and we were really busy because we were still in the process of selling our home. We were in the process of buying a home out here, and everything was just really busy. And we got a phone call 2 weeks after we moved here, and it was this woman I talked to, and she said, Dr. Leroy would love to take your case on. He can see you in 2 weeks.
Wow.
Can you come? And we were like, wow, yes, we will be there. We will come. So we went, and we drove to Philadelphia. We were just excited. We kind of went in with really low expectations because everywhere we'd been, it was the same thing of, we don't know, sorry, we'll keep an eye on him. So we get to Dr. Leroy's office, and we're there for hours and hours. I mean, they're usually really long because they have to dilate the eyes, and then they take all these pictures, which are really hard for 7-year-olds to sit still for because they call them fundal images and all these pictures. So we've been there for about 3 hours. Again, we have our whole family is there. We have a 2-year-old and, we brought like treats and everything, and we're keeping them entertained. And finally, Dr. Leroy comes in, and he's very nice. He's got this wonderful Belgian accent, and he says to us, first of all, tell me what you know about Best disease. And so we kind of told him what we knew, like, this is where it affects. My son's probably going blind is what we've been told, and they don't know anything else about it. And he says, okay, let me tell you, first of all, your son is not going blind. We just felt this weight lifted off of us. Like, it was just amazing to us.
Yeah.
Then Dr. Leroy sat with us for an hour. He said, first, let me tell you what the disease is doing to his eyes, and then your son has a complication of the disease, and I'll tell you what that is. So he explained in finite detail everything that was happening. He knows everything about this disease. This man helped discover a variant of the disease.
Wow.
So my son has genetically been contributed one bad gene, and he helped discover where the parents give 2 bad genes. He's on the forefront of curing blindness and other diseases, and this man is amazing. And if you Google him, there's tons of stuff on him. He's just amazing. And we just felt so blessed that we could even be with him. And so he gets through telling us about the disease. And at one point I said, can I record you? Because I'm not going to remember. And he's like, yes. So I started recording, and he started over, and he recorded everything for us. And then he told us, he said, so your son won't go blind from the disease itself, but he can go blind from complications. He explained to us that our son had a complication of bleeding into his retinas. And so since his eyes aren't formed correctly, it makes them weak, and blood vessels were growing up inside of his eyes. If blood goes where it's not supposed to be, it's very caustic, and it causes scar tissue. And scar tissue equals eyes that can't see. And we had kind of noticed that McLean didn't want to read very much. He was acting a little more clumsy, and that's because his vision had digressed. At diagnosis, he sat around about 20/40. When we got to Philadelphia the first time, he was at about 20/80.
Wow.
Dr. Leroy said to us, it's not an emergency, but you need to be back within 2 weeks to have surgery, or he could go permanently blind.
Wow, that fast.
That fast. We're like, not an emergency. That seems pretty emergent.
Yeah.
So we were just over the moon. You know what? Surgery to fix a complication was nothing compared to being told our son was going blind. And we were elated. And as we drove home from Philadelphia that day, we called all of our family members, and we told them our joyous news of meeting this doctor who knew what was going on and was going to be able to help him. So 10 days later, we came back to Philadelphia. We got a phone call from the surgeon. Dr. Leroy doesn't do the surgeries because it's not his specialty. So I'm talking to the surgeon, and I work in nursing. A lot of times surgeons don't call you personally, but they must do it differently out here because the surgeon called me himself. And he asked me if I had any questions, and he told me about what he was going to do. And so I asked him, I said, do you often do this in children this young? And he kind of giggled, and he's like, well, no, your son's a lot older than my normal clientele. I usually work on preemie babies. And so I was like, oh, well, perfect. Like, you know what you're doing. So we had surgery. By the time we got to surgery 10 days later, McLean's eyes had gone from the 20/80, they were now 21/50.
Holy cow.
His vision was rapidly declining.
Wow.
We had the surgery. They inject a medication into the back of his eyes. It's a cancer drug that kills all blood vessels. And so we had the process done. We came back the next day for checkup, and then we've slowly been having follow-ups over the last while. So his vision is now really stable. One eye is at 20/30, is back to 20/30.
Wow.
And one eye is at 20/70. So together he sees about 20/60, which is phenomenal for us.
That's amazing.
There's still hard things like he still won't be able to drive. And who knows, cars might drive themselves by the time he gets there.
Right.
But as we reflected and thought about how we feel so blessed that God cares enough about something as small as my son's vision to put us on a path that led us to a place that he could have it preserved. We feel like for sure if we were living in Utah, the doctors wouldn't have caught the bleeding because they didn't know what the disease normally looks like anyways. And he would have gone blind. He would have gone blind. But we got offered a random job in Pennsylvania and we felt good about it, and we moved, and we had people say, you're so lucky it all just worked out for you. And I might be a little brash and I'd say, you know, it's not luck. It's a miracle. We were blessed with a miracle. And I feel like sometimes people only hear about the Bible, and that's when miracles happened. And miracles happen today. And God loves us, and he blesses us so much. And McLean's life would have been wonderful and full without his vision, but God loves us enough that he helped us preserve his vision. And we are so grateful every day for that blessing. It just, you don't really think about things like that until you're put in a situation where it might be gone. And then you stop and you think about all the things we thought he would miss out in life because he couldn't see. So that's our miracle, and it's still continuing. We're astounded at his last visit that one eye was back to 20/30. Like, that's amazing.
And does the doctor say he'll continue to progress with his vision?
No, he won't. He'll stabilize probably right here. We didn't think we'd even get to 20/30. He told us that more than likely he will, in the next 6 months or so, which is where we are about at. That's as good as we'll get probably. And then we just need to keep a close eye on him and make sure he doesn't have any more complications. So we're still going to Dr. Leroy in Philly. We see him again in May. Dr. Leroy was on the team of doctors who helped pass the first genetic therapy in the United States that cured blindness.
Wow.
It's the first genetic therapy there is, but it's specifically for blindness. And he told us that Best disease is on his radar for what he wants to start working on next. And he told us if McLean doesn't have irreversible damage like scar tissue, potentially one day with genetic therapy, he could be cured.
Wow.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
So
that is amazing.
It's just so amazing. The science is coming so far and doing amazing things.
Well, and you know, as you're sharing that part, your whole story is so beautiful that the Lord orchestrated you to be at the right place with the right doctor. But I also see the Lord working with this doctor to have someone to work with, like your son, to help him learn what he's needing to learn to improve and set him on his track for therapy and to learn. I just think that's beautiful on both sides. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Dr. Leroy had told us that McLean is the youngest, most advanced he's ever seen.
Mm.
And he's kind of an anomaly because it's a genetic disease. So with a child that advanced, you would expect to see a parent with signs of the disease. And my
Yeah.
husband has no signs of the disease,
Hmm.
which is really unique. We have done genetic testing on my son. We will get the results back in May, and then we'll probably start doing it on our other children and on my husband to kind of see where the fupa is, you know?
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. Have you done testing with your other children? So not yet.
Not yet.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of went back and forth because before we were out here, I didn't know if I wanted to know because
yeah, what would make
I can't
it
do
wouldn't make a
anything about
difference.
it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. But now we'll be starting on that track soon. So I have a 5-year-old and he already, we know he sees better than his brother. We can tell.
Mm-hmm.
So my oldest is Mac. He thinks he has perfect vision still sometimes. and it's really cute and funny. But yeah, we can definitely see how his brothers aren't impaired the way he is, but we'll be doing genetic testing on him. And we're just so blessed to, insurance won't pay for it. There's just programs in CHOP that, CHOP is the acronym for Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. They just call it CHOP.
Mm-hmm.
And so they have programs that have made it so that we can afford to get the genetic testing done and not be selling our youngest child because it's so expensive.
Right.
Yeah, it's been really nice. So we have just been immensely blessed.
I love that. I love that miracle of God cares enough for your little boy to send you to the exact place that you needed to be. I love that.
Exactly where we needed to be at the exact time.
Exactly.
You know,
right.
because the bleeding had probably just started within the last month and it was severe. It was, it was changing quick. So
yeah, I love it. Isn't God amazing? I just love stories like this.
It is amazing.
Oh,
it is amazing. And I see God in the sunrise and I see God every time I look at my beautiful children and I remember how much he loves us. Mm-hmm. Vision might not seem like it's a big deal, but really it's in the scheme of life, it's not. And so we just feel so profoundly overwhelmed that, God loved us enough that he led us here so we could preserve what sight he could have still.
Yeah.
It's amazing to us.
That is amazing. What a cool story.
That's awesome.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Thank you. It is a cool story.
I'm so happy for you guys.
It's amazing, especially after it first happened. We just wanted to tell everyone, and I just started a new job. I'm a nurse and I work up in labor and delivery, and somehow it came up and I was telling one of the nurses and another nurse was listening and she just stood up and hugged me. She's like, your miracle is beautiful, and
yes.
I think that sometimes we just need to share God's love.
Yes.
I think that if we look in our own lives, they might not be so profound, but we'll see miracles everywhere. Mm-hmm. We just have to look,
Well, and I think the profundity of it is that we feel God's love and that leading us along in big things, in small things. And that's the miracle, I think, when we recognize God is very aware of me. I think that changes our hearts and our lives, which is miraculous, I really believe.
I think you're right.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing that.
Thanks for having me.
All right, well, that's our show for today. I'm just so appreciative of Lindsay's story and so happy that they've seen this miracle take place in their life. Just a quick reminder, if you have a miracle story that you would like to share, go ahead and submit it on my website at wondersandmiracles.com. I'm always looking for more stories that uplift and demonstrate God's hand in our lives. Also, remember to share the podcast with friends and family. Tell one person this week today about it. That's my challenge for you. So uplift one person's life this week with the podcast Wonders and Miracles. And John Henry Newman's hymn, Lead Kindly Light, verse 2, says, So long thy power hath blessed me, sure it still will lead me on, o'er moor and fen, o'er crag and torrent, till the night is gone, and with the morn those angel faces smile, which I have loved long since and lost a while. I hope that you can think of a time in your life that you have seen God lead you along, and that it wasn't just luck, that it was a miracle. And remember to notice and celebrate those miracles every day, because the more miracles we notice, the more miracles happen.